Call to order the September 14th, 2020 public hearing for the City of Tampa's Architectural Review Commission. Welcome, everyone. My name is Zachary Greco. I'm the chair of the commission. If you're here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and the relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. You should present the presentation in the following order: site plan, elevations, architectural details, and wall sections. Staff will then present the staff report, and then we will then ask the public for comments. Following your presentation, the commissioners will begin asking questions in the same order as the presentation. Please state and spell your name clearly if you are here to speak either for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments, because 3 minutes goes by very quickly. Following public comment, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. The only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the commissioners. Commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based upon City Ordinance Chapter 27 of the City Zoning Code, the design guidelines, the Secretary of the Interior standards, the Historic Preservation Development Review HPDRC comments, and the testimony given at this public hearing. The ARC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owners and agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence all cell phones. At this point, I will ask my commissioners, starting on my left, to introduce themselves.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Sutton. I am an architect. I hold the Architectural Historian Chair.
Shauna Boyd, Interior Designer.
Susan Claus Smith, architect.
We are also here tonight with city staff, Dennis Fernandez, Ron Villa, Elaine Lunn, Beverly Jusak, and Kamaria Pettis-Mackel with Legal Department. This moment, would any of the commissioners like to make a motion for the meetings from August 3rd and 5th to be entered?
I move that the meeting minutes for the August 3rd and August 5th Public Review Commission public hearing be accepted as presented.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon. Good evening, Mr. Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Welcome to this evening's meeting. We will also be meeting tomorrow evening, September the 15th. Having to adjust our calendar for other meetings that are being held in this room. So we'll see you tomorrow evening as well. I just want to, okay, it's on now. I did want to provide you with the architecture review, staff reviews for August to be entered into the record. And then also, as a reminder, you do have the 2021 Architecture Review Commission schedules in your packets. If you do not, let us know. We will provide you one, and we'll be emailing those to you as well. So you can plan your calendar appropriately for 2021. Thank you, and with that, I'll ask Rana to come up and handle any continuations that we have this evening. Thank you.
I'll go. You want me to go first?
Go ahead, Kamari.
Okay. Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. Can any of the board members please state on the record whether or not they have any conflicts of interest regarding any of the items that are on the agenda?
Not aye.
No.
None.
Okay. Additionally, can any of the board members please state on the record whether or not they've had any ex parte communication regarding any of the items that are on the agenda?
No.
Not aye.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Vila?
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Under continuations, we have one reflected on the agenda, which is ARC 20-157 for the address of 815 Bayshore Boulevard. That request came from the agent to continue to a future date. Upon them asking for a future date continuation, they will have to repost the property. At this time, everybody that wishes to testify, please stand up and raise your right hand, including staff. Ms. Juzak will swear everybody in. I do.
Look, can you hold on just for 1 second? I don't know if everyone is gonna, are you going to? Okay, can we have him sworn in, please, or do it again?
Everybody that wishes to testify, please stand up and raise your right hand. Thank you. This time we're ready for the first case.
Good evening. This is Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. The first item that we have on the agenda that we're hearing this evening is case number ARC 20-190, located at 507 East Paris Street in the Seminole Heights Historic District. This is an application for certificate of appropriateness for new construction, and I'll just go through the photo presentation here. So the green arrow is indicating the approximate location, or rather the location of the subject site. You'll notice that it is outside the boundaries of the National Register District, but inside the local historic district boundaries, the local district being the red line, and that it is situated in the northeast corner of the historic district, being about a block away from Hannah Avenue and very close to the interstate. This is the 1920s Sanborn map of this portion of Seminole Heights. The subject site is in green. You can see the residential pattern there. You can see that a lot of the lots were not developed at this time. Several were, of course, but you do see the pattern shown with the yellow showing the wood frame houses, the red that's either outlining or completely making up the buildings being the brick, and the blue, I believe, being concrete or stucco there. Again, you can see how close the subject site is to the boundary of the historic district. And then this is the present-day aerial. You can see here the proximity of the site to the interstate. Note that across the street from it, there's no more residences as were shown on the Sanborn map, but it's all the church property now. It's the Seminole Heights Methodist Church to the north. So this is the lot, the subject site, currently vacant. This is the house directly to the west. And this is the house to the east. You can see that there's some later construction along this block as well. This is looking north toward the church parking lot. Then we have a view here looking west along Paris towards Central Avenue. You'll notice that there's no curb or sidewalk in this area. And then looking east toward the interstate. So that concludes the photo essay portion of the introduction. And at this time, I'd like the applicants to head to the podium there to make the presentation.
Thank you. Yes, so you can use yeah, you're fine. So you can use there's a camera there that will show anything that you're having on the table. And then just make sure you're speaking either into the microphone or the microphone at the podium. Yes.
Okay, so we're going with the site plan. You'll see that we have the aprons coming all the way back here.
Excuse
Then
me.
could you,
Yeah, Kamari Pettis-Mackle from the legal department. Can you state your name for the record, please?
It's Derek Triga. I'm the agent that is going to be actually the builder on the property, for representation of gun properties. So yeah, we're going with a one-story, 1,750 square foot, single-family bungalow here. You can see the site plan, the oak trees and everything, all had been taken away previously. Ribbons here extending up to the front, and two concrete parking spaces that are behind the front elevation. On the exterior elevations. So the exterior elevations proposed, we were going to look at doing all, given the bungalow facade, all stucco siding here on the front, with bands here around the edge, thin brick veneer here on the front as well. Pretty standard, straightforward. In regards to the roofing materials that we're going to be using, we're going with the GAF Timberline series. 30-year dimensional shingle that we're going to use the weatherwood color. In terms of the overhangs and the rafters and the soffits, this exhibit is a previous home built right down the street that I did for another investor. It's got exposed tails on the trusses, 1132 E-board underneath, showing the exposed soffits. In terms of the exhibits for the entry doors, for the two front, we have two options here. For the windows, we were going to, actually, the plan does not show it, use an impact PGT window with the grids to give it, possible better look on the facade, instead of going with, anchors or anything that might not be shown with elevation here in the front. And then here's, some exhibits in the historic district, stucco bungalows that were put together. I think that's about it in terms of elevations, exhibits, and everything. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. At this point, staff will now present the staff report.
Commissioners, staff found this application to be consistent with these Seminole Heights Historic District Design Guidelines. There were some conditions in the staff report, and I have worked with the applicants to try to make sure that those were addressed. You may want to review some of those items just to clarify for yourself. Let's see if I can do this here. I wanted to point out to you, in the Seminole Heights Design Guidelines, it talks about the materials that you see throughout the district, and of course, noting that wood is the most common exterior material in the district, but it also notes that brick and stucco are found in the district too. So this is an example of one of the historic buildings on Central Avenue that uses stucco on its exterior. Another one, I think this was over on Branch. And this is an example of new construction on Branch Avenue that was approved a few years ago. It has stucco exterior. So I'm available to make any, address any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we will open to any public comment. If anyone would like to either speak for or against.
Actually, Mr. Commissioner, before we do that, Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the legal department. Sir, can you state what your name is for the records?
My name,
Yeah.
Derek Friga.
Derek Friga. And then the property owner is present. Can you please go to the podium, please? I need verification on you giving him the authority to speak on your behalf.
Yes, I give the authority to speak on my behalf.
And just complete the sentence that you get your name for the record is,
My name for the record is Tom Menachino.
and you're the property owner?
I am the property owner.
And do you give this gentleman the authority to speak on your behalf?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone from the public like to speak either for or against this project? All right, seeing and hearing none, the commissioners will now begin asking questions. Commissioner Clausmith, would you like to begin?
Actually, yes. Forgive me, but you went through your drawings very quickly. So if you could please put your actual drawings of the building that's proposed, the structure.
The three sides of the elevation, or which
Elevations would be great. And then can we get the camera to zoom out so we can get that sheet fully? That's good, that's good. So what was the trim that you proposed for the project?
cementitious bands, stucco bands.
Cementitious stucco bands? That's what I thought you said. And then in terms of the gable ends, what is the treatment there?
The gable ends on the front.
The gable ends or the triangles, either at the front or the rear?
The treatments on top is going to be hardy siding, shake siding.
Hardy shake siding? Okay. And then can we go back to, at the front elevation, you have a proposed porch. What is the materials that porch will be constructed out of, including the foundation and the railing and the stairs?
Foundation, slab, stairs, concrete as well, wood on the railings, and then, what was the last question?
The foundations themselves, what are the proposed foundations for the porch itself?
It's going to be under the same concrete slab.
A concrete style, can you be a little bit more specific about the detail of that?
To the foundation plan.
Sure, we can look at that. Or a section, if you have that. Actually, a section would be more valuable, if you have that. Can we zoom into the lower left portion? Please, camera. There, come out just a tad. Okay, that's great. So what is the proposed condition for the foundation at the porch?
Proposed condition, you're asking me?
Yes.
The slab? I don't know what,
So-
the condition itself.
So I guess the question is.
It's the construction that's proposed for this particular component of the structure.
Yeah, it's
I could tell you, but that's not my role. I'm asking specifically for the record what it is that's proposed for the project.
continuous footing, I don't know what you're, I'm sorry if I can't answer this question. I don't know.
What is the facing material to finish out the porch at the front?
Like down here on the bottom, or,
Not the ground, not,
Yeah, that's-
what I'm speaking of is the public face
yes.
of the building.
Mhm.
So you have a turn-down footing, you have a
One person
slab,
can speak at a time.
you have a slab that comes to masonry footings.
Yes,
At the front of that masonry footing, you propose some type of finish.
yes. a
So
stucco
what's that
finish on the
finish?
bottom.
I'm sorry?
A stucco finish on the bottom?
It is a stucco as
Yes.
well? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. And then at the columns, what are the materials for the
The
columns?
stops, the column is going to be wood, there's going to be no composite over anything, so it'll be trimmed out wood all the way throughout here. And then we're going to have a thin brick veneer
Okay.
on the bottom, on the base.
And then the
So-
cap?
The cap, 4-inch concrete cap.
Okay, thank you very much. That's it for my questions at this time.
All right, so real quick, so you're stating that below the concrete slab is going to be stucco banding for the foundation. The drawings that you have here, bottom left image shows where it says elevation 40.5 feet, porch slab. Then it says painted wood lattice and PT 1x2 frame, typical. So that would typically be your foundation enclosure or finish that was being asked for. Is that going to be on the building, or is that detail incorrect?
This detail must have been incorrect.
Okay. Then I guess the next question is the detail to the right of that, that also has, the camera could zoom out, just. So detail number 2, that also has your, it's now saying the 1-inch cement stucco overlay. The hardy plank siding that's showing on that wall on the outside of the CMU wall. Can you show me where that is on your elevations?
There isn't any.
Okay.
This was a proposed that we had to go against stucco.
Okay. Commissioner Klausmith, do you have any further questions?
Not this time.
Okay. Commissioner Boyd?
A couple of the conditions are, from staff, are the foundation enclosure, which you just discussed, hardware and lighting. Do you have hardware and lighting specifications? Would you mind pulling your elevations back up? So the elevation is also calling for that wood lattice painted. So you're saying that that's not?
Can you put it, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I did not understand the original question. And so, yeah, if it's calling for lattice, then that's what we're going to do.
Okay, so the foundation enclosure on the front porch will be the wood painted lattice?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any additional questions at the moment. Sorry, to clarify, you were calling for 3/1 windows in that specification? That's what you're proposing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, please, could you refer to your site plan? As I read this site plan, am I correct in understanding that there is no fence at this time proposed for this project?
At this time, there is not, but
There is not proposed at this point in time. Could you please indicate to me where you plan on placing your air conditioning equipment?
yeah. It's going to be right over here on the left side, but it's not indicated here.
So that air conditioning equipment will be essentially visible from the street front, correct?
That would be, if it was proposed there, then yes.
What proposal do you have for screening that equipment, which is a requirement of the district?
We can do a wood fence.
Would you commit to that at this meeting?
What was that?
Would you commit to that at this meeting?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I have no further question.
I have a question for staff. Could you maybe explain the comment of correct the length of the primary roof on the east elevation so that it extends past the front bedroom wall?
Yes, Commissioner, I believe. Could the applicant put the plans up on there again? The elevations? Yeah, thank you. Can you pull them down a little bit so we can see the east side, please? So in this, on this elevation, you can see the porches kind of set back a little further from the wall that's to the west of it. So the front of the building on the west comes forward of the front of the building just to the east of that. So you're seeing in this drawing the porch and the wall that's just beyond that. The roof line of the body there's, I believe, should extend a bit further out to be able to project over the front of that building wall there. It's shown drawn that way on the west side elevation on the bottom of the page.
Okay. So for the agent, do you understand, I
Yeah,
guess, the comment?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. If we could real quick, so just for the record, to make sure, since there is some inconsistency on the details, primary finish for the building will be stucco on
Yes.
CMU block?
Yes.
Okay. And then, to your knowledge, is there anything else in the drawings that we're either showing, besides maybe the window patterns, the exterior material, is there anything else that was maybe put in the drawings as a proposed that's been changed?
No.
Okay. Do you have any additional details for either your railing or some of the trim pieces besides the small little details that you're seeing on your elevations?
I do not.
Okay. Under the gable ends where you have two things. You have the vents. I'm assuming it's probably not a true vent for the
No,
attic, or is it?
It's gonna be just a decorative gable vent.
Okay. And then do you have any details for that?
I do not.
All right. The band that you have at where it says top of block, where it's a transition on the gable ends between the stucco and the hardy plank, is that going to be a hardy board material?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have a section or
do
detail
not.
for that? Okay. Then do you have any other additional, you did go through doors and windows, roofs. Do you have anything else for hardware, lighting?
No.
Okay. Do any of the fellow commissioners have any additional questions or comments? Okay. At this point, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal.
No rebuttal.
All right, thank you. At this point, we will be closing this portion of the public hearing, and the commissioners will now begin discussing the case. Would anyone like to begin?
I really have nothing specific in regards to anything I've seen other than inconsistencies between what's stated and what's shown. But however, that's not something that is limited to this particular case. It's just a notation when coming before the commission that you ensure your drawings relate to one another when you go from one to the other, so we don't get those questions.
I don't have any comments.
I share my commissioner's partial dismay on the level of completeness for this presentation. We have a number of items here that are up in the air, if you will. You've made certain commitments, but we're also looking at, if we proceed with this, asking staff to do an awful lot of continuing coordination work with you during this construction period. Items, such as your details, your final windows, fence enclosures, fences in general, if it ever shows up again, hardware, lighting, all are going to have to be coordinated with staff. Are you prepared to contend with that? I myself, I am not generally in line with a project that has so many outstanding items left for staff to resolve when it should be resolved here for this meeting or for this presentation.
I
That
think
is my only comment.
The fundamental design has been relayed. There are some coordination on the drawings that needs to be made, but I understand, based on what was provided, the general design of the project.
General design is
We-
fine.
Yeah, we condition, unfortunately, we condition things like hardware and lighting quite often,
Mm-hmm.
as well as screening the AC equipment.
I also think a lot of the details they do show, like in wall sections, there are some details that show it correctly, and then the other one it's not. So I think as a comprehensive idea, we understand where this project is going. I think it also, fortunately, probably doesn't work in your favor that this is your first time, so trying to learn that can be a little bit difficult. I think overall, there's the things that we could look at doing. I wouldn't say would change overall the design of the project. It's just some inconsistencies, but that'd be my opinion. Any additional comments?
Yeah, I'm not so sure that what's left out isn't something that we haven't asked for staff to coordinate after a hearing, and we have a lot of confidence in the ability and the expertise of our staff to continue that conversation with the agent and the owner to make sure that the spirit of the guidelines is met and the neighborhoods, are
Okay.
encouraged.
So would anyone like to make a comment, or like to make a motion, sorry?
I move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in ARC 20-190 for the property located at 507 East Paris Street with the following conditions: that hardware and lighting are approved by staff, that the air conditioning equipment is screened, and that the coordination of elevations and details are updated to reflect the design presented at this hearing. Because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Seminole Heights design guidelines for the city of Tampa for the following reasons: that the scale, massing, setback, and orientation comply with the guidelines.
I second the motion.
And before we vote, do you understand the conditions as they've been stated? Okay, and then on the record, are you okay with them? All right. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Against?
Motion passes. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. The next item on the agenda is ARC 20-233 for the address of 1723 West Hills Avenue. This is in the Hyde Park Historic District. The primary structure was constructed in 1923. It is a contributing structure. The zoning attached to this parcel is RS60. In front of you this evening, the request is for new construction, an addition to the primary structure, a new accessory structure, and then some site improvements. Past action is that on page 3 of your staff report, you reviewed this project in July 8th, 2020. There were some items that were not present at that public hearing, and you felt it should come back, so it's in front of you this evening, obviously. At this time, I would like to share the photo presentation with you. I'd like to start out with a 1929 Sanborn map. The property is highlighted in the green shaded area. The front facade faces hills. It's a corner parcel. The side elevation is on Gumby, and there is an alley that runs to the rear of the property. This is a current overhead shot, once again placing the structure on the corner of Hills and Gumby. The primary structure is kind of shifted towards the side street, which is Gumby, which allows for the driveway to be relocated. Currently, you see the driveway, how it kind of dies into the side of the house. As part of this request and the site improvements that they're going to do, they're going to shift the apron and the driveway over slightly so it dies straight into the accessory structure, and that'll be indicated on the site plan. Since we last met, the owners and the agent uncovered the primary structure. Prior to tonight's hearing, it had asbestos siding that encapsulated the historic wood siding. Since then, they peeled most of it off. You see the original siding, you see the trim and the windows that were period appropriate. And then as they brought in the asbestos siding, they put some backer boards down. I don't believe this was part of the original fabric at all. It doesn't relate back to the proportions and the scale of the original materials. This is the front elevation, obviously. As you move around to the elevation that is closely to the drive aisle, this is how it looked prior to them uncovering some of the historic treatment. And then you see the lap siding. A couple things to note, you see how the siding almost comes down to grade here. And then this is the street elevation. And as they uncovered, you see the lap siding here. You see the period appropriate casings. And then moving to the rear elevation. And once again, exposing the original materials. The period windows are a wood window, a 3/1 pattern. Here you see the beadboard, the rafter tails, and some of the timbers at the top of the columns. To share with you some of the surrounding properties, this is abutting to the east. The structure that we're talking about is over here. This is directly across the street. This is the condition of the alley. And just to conclude, just looking from the alley, property in question is over here, and the alley and Gumby. So that concludes the photo presentation. At this time, Mr. Breeze, as their architect and their agent, will address the board.
Good evening. My name is Lyle Breeze, and I am the registered agent for Lisa and Pete Van Fossen for their property at 1723 Hills. As mentioned, we were here at the July 8th meeting, and at that time, there were a number of suggestions made and questions raised, and we elected to continue to tonight's meeting in order to have time to address those suggestions and questions. So starting out with the site plan, as mentioned, there was a previous driveway strips that are being abandoned, and the new driveway will serve the proposed accessory structure, so they're moved over to the north slightly. The question was asked by the gentleman here about air conditioning equipment. One of the units is proposed to be here. Another unit is underneath the stairway to the accessory structure. The fence, we are proposing a fence, and it's a 6-foot-high wood fence that will be painted, and I have a detail of that. But the only change from the last presentation on the fence is that we elected to carry, previously the fence ended at this point, and we've elected to carry that further forward to the corner of the proposed new addition. And then we're showing a double gate here, but the owners have located an existing metal gate, and it's a single gate, so it will swing in one direction. The elevations, previously there was question about existing and proposed. So what I've done is every sheet will show at the top the existing conditions, and as mentioned, this house had an asbestos shingle siding on it, and it was taken all the way to the ground, which actually led to several structural problems with the house. There was no ventilation underneath and no insulation on the floor system, so there was a lot of wood damage, rot, termite problems that are being addressed. And then on each of these sheets, the lower elevation shows the existing with the proposed new construction transposed on that. The dashed line is the proposed accessory structure, which I have a whole separate sheet for that. And here is a detail of the proposed fence, which is, I guess you would call a shadow box with an open picket at the top. The Gunby Avenue elevations show a detail of the window with the trims that are existing. The intent is to preserve and restore any of the existing windows that can be made functional. If they can't be made functional, we're proposing to use a Sierra Pacific wooden window that would replicate the existing windows. And to the extent that you'll see some of the windows are 3 over 1, but depending on proportion, some are 2 over 1. So I've chosen to try to replicate that in the other locations. A question was raised about the columns on the rear porch. As you see on the front porch, there's an existing plinth with a square column on top of it. So we chose to replicate that on the rear porch on the first level, but go to a more simplified square post on the second level. In the photographs that Ron showed, the front porch had a solid railing added to it at some point. We're proposing to go to a vertical picket railing. And I have a vertical picket railing would be more like this. Again, the owners felt that having an open type railing would be more conducive to sitting on the porch comfortably and having airflow. With the new, the siding, as mentioned, was a wood shiplap, or sometimes referred to as Dutch lap siding. Even in the original, the siding had been taken down to grade level, which is really not a very wise thing to do with houses that are elevated on a supposedly a vented floor space. So what we're proposing to do is to raise the level of the siding up. There are existing piers underneath the house. There were brick piers. We're adding concrete piers under the new construction, but then facing them with a brick veneer. So the areas in between will be brick, probably a lattice, every other brick voided to allow airflow under the house. We'll be adding insulation to the floor system, to the walls, and to the roof as well. The gable end details in the pictures that Ron showed, and I actually think the existing gable end vents were a vertical horizontal lattice, and they were actually venting the attic system. We're proposing to go to a spray foam insulation, so those vents would be closed off but kept for architectural purposes. The owners actually would like to modify those vents to something on the order of this, to replicate the vertical pickets of the railings on the front porch and the rear porches. This is the rear elevation. This is the northeast elevation, and you can see on the existing, this is the existing structure. It had a little bit of a bump out on the back. It had kind of a weird bathroom window with a glass block built next to it, which is totally out of keeping with this style of house. So that is proposed to be removed. So in the new elevation, you can see the existing structure to this point, and then the new two-story proposed addition is transposed over that. And again, the dashed line represents the relationship of the accessory structure to that. The rear elevation, originally the house had a kind of a lean-to shed added to the side of it, the Gunby Avenue side. That's already been removed under a demolition permit. We're proposing to remove this enclosed porch area as part of the new construction. So the shed roofs will be gone entirely. This represents the proposed new rear elevation. In the previous presentation, the question was asked, some of these gable ends were actually shown as an abbreviated gable. It was a hip with a setback gable. After considering that, we chose not to do any of those, to stay with a straight gable on any place that a gable occurs. So the gables are exposed rafters 2x4, and the barge rafters are 2x6. This, I don't know if you can see all of this. This is a section detail of the rear porches so that we can demonstrate. We have a masonry pier with the brick veneer. We have a wood suspended floor, wood porch, the 12-inch square plinth, and the 8-inch square post on top of it. The second floor is a straight post. And then the railing would replicate the railing on the front porch. This is a photograph of the shiplap siding or Dutch lap siding, and you can see the asphalt shingles that are in the process of being removed. We discovered that there was originally a corner board over the top of the shiplap. It was removed when they added this metal corner for the asbestos shingle siding. So we'll go back to a corner board to replicate what was there originally. In terms of light fixtures, this is a photograph of the original light fixtures that are there. We believe they've been painted over time. They are currently white, but we believe if they were black, they'd probably have a better contrast to the body of the house. So we are proposing, we did find a light fixture that comes very close to the look of that with this light fixture. And it's available in both a 17.5 and a 21. So depending on its location, we might vary the size of the fixture. But at any exit door that's required to have lighting, we will have these fixtures added to it. The door hardware, we chose kind of a traditional door hardware, lever handle on the inside and thumb latch on the outside, very traditional. The entry doors, wherever there's a single entry door, this is the proposed Craftsman style door. The asphalt shingles for the roof, we're proposing a kind of a monochromatic look to it. So a gray type shingle with a shadow line to give it a little bit of dimension. The gate that the owners have found is this gate. It measures 11 foot wide. It's 6.5 foot tall at the center, 5.5 foot tall at the edges. And on the elevation, on this elevation, you can see that the gate is proposed in this location. The only change that we would like to make from that, these were submitted prior to the owner determining that what we'd like to do, you can see the wood fence and the wood gate on this side of the house. We'd like to continue the wood fence here and at the corner of the fence so that only the gate would be an open metal gate. And this is the typical wall sections for both the main structure and the accessory structure. Main structure, we intend to match the floor height of the existing house, so it'll be elevated with a crawl space underneath and ventilated with a spread footing under or a pad footing under the piers, and then the brick veneer. Again, the shiplap siding, and we will be insulating all of the interior walls. Again, we're proposing to use spray foam insulation, which occurs under the actual roof decking, so the attic becomes semi-conditioned. The overhangs, we're matching the existing with the tongue and groove, excuse me, tongue and groove sheathing with the exposed 2x4 rafters, matching the existing pitch. On the garage structure, there is a second floor, a couple of bedrooms on the second floor. We're going to a monolithic foundation, but in order to keep the siding off of the grade, we're electing to do a curb, masonry curb, CMU curb in the garage to elevate the wood walls above the garage level. Pardon me. And let's see if I covered everything. Yeah, I think I hit all the bullet points, so that's my presentation.
All right, thank you. At this point, staff will now present the staff report.
Commissioners, Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Going through the staff's findings, as this application is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines. There were 10 condition bullet items that were addressed on page 4 of your staff report that he went through. I think the only item that I saw that I didn't strike off of the conditions was the garage door, if he could.
Oh, I do have a garage door.
Present that to the commissioners at this time, and I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thank you. At this point, we will open the public hearing to any public comment. If anyone would like to speak either for or against. All right, seeing none, The commissioners will now begin asking questions. Commissioner Sutton, would you like to begin?
I just have one question respecting your doors. You made a presentation here of your garage door. You have your single unit doors for use and for passageways from inside to out. Note on your rear elevation, you have what appears to be a gang of French doors. Do you
Yes.
have that to present to us tonight?
I have a cut sheet from the door manufacturer, but it's a
That'd be- that-
typical,
That would be acceptable to look at.
it's a typical single light French door.
Is it a single light? So
Yes.
you're not intending to break that light up in any particular fashion
We're
that
not
might have a
proposing to
relationship
because
to
it's
your
a-
windows?
Because it is a fenced backyard, and
Mhm.
because, not that the fence is permanent, but because the view of the backyard is the primary view from the rear of the house, the idea was to keep a clear view through the doors.
So you're treating it more as a ceiling-to-floor window wall
Yes,
in a thematic fashion?
correct.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
I don't have any additional questions.
On the original trim, and I have to say that this project has really come along, and I'm very happy to see what you brought us today. I
Thank you.
think you worked very hard with the owner and took to heart a lot of the comments that we had for you, and I think it's going to be a wonderful place for them to make a home. The only question I have is, now that we see the historic elements underneath that were hidden, the trim actually, or the siding actually looks like it ends up in a rain skirt. Is that correct? At the bottom as it transitions to the foundation? It was really hard to see in a lot of the photos.
By rain skirt, are you talking to?
It pops out
A
as
kick
it
out.
comes to the bottom.
I think that actually occurred when they added the asbestos shingle, and in order to miss the foundation piers. And that's why I actually, on my section, I actually stepped in.
Do you have any photos with the bottom of that transition?
let
It
me
seems
see
like
here.
every time I look at a photo, it's like cut out of there, cut out of view, and I, I hope that's not on purpose.
This might be the only one that shows, and you can see on this corner right here, there is a slight kick out, but I think that that was in order to accommodate the piers underneath. What I've done on the new proposed addition is to step those piers in slightly so that the exterior sheathing, the siding, can come down straight without having to kick out.
So that was actually going to be another question. In the details, it's really hard for me to see. Is there an enlarged detail of that to understand how that actually transitions from the brick to the siding at the?
That would probably be the wall section.
Maybe if we can look at that again and then maybe have the camera zoom in just slightly. And Ron, did you have an image of that elevation with the actual shingles removed? I couldn't remember if you showed that at the beginning.
I could go and elaborate on that a little bit. When we first met on site, this house was compromised. It was heavily vegetated. You could barely see the house. So as you see grade, when you see the earth come up and you see the minimal transition from the dirt to the siding, I think over time, the dirt kind of raised up.
Sure.
And that's why it just shows that little profile. And I think the agent was accurate in stating that the houses needed to breathe, and that caused some of the demise to the structure, that it wasn't able to vent properly. He's going to a more traditional application to a craftsman-style home by doing a pier and then the siding, and that the pier, I think the exposure might be, what, 24 inches there? Lyle?
Actually, from the grade to the floor level is 23 inches. So if you subtract an average 12-inch floor joist, you've got a little over 12 inches of exposed
Right.
vent.
So can we look at your section? I saw it go up and then it went away.
This is the typical wall section, and if you can zero in on the foundation here, you can see where I've actually added a third actually added a little,
A little bit more, sorry.
it's okay. There we go. If you look, the carrying member between piers is actually a double 2x member. I've added a third member in order to be able to bring the masonry CMU piers in a little bit so that by the time we add the veneer, our siding can come down on the outside of the top edge of the veneer.
So it looks like the intent is that the siding actually gets to have a little bit of breathing space before the brick. So it's not like this in line, but maybe more of a, allowing the siding to bear out in front of the face of the brick. That's what it
Well,
almost is.
it actually should flush out. The edge, if you look at the edge of the frame wall, that's actually in line with, I do have a band at the bottom here.
Right.
That, and then the siding comes down on the top of that band as it would to the corner
Right.
boards.
So it seems to me that the band is allowing the siding to pop out, which it would
Exactly.
traditionally, even with that flashing flange that you have in your drawing, the siding should kick out a little bit.
A little bit.
Okay, all
Being
right.
it's a shiplap, it has a little bit of a slant to it.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Mhm.
If you presented this, I do apologize. Do you have any either elevations for the accessory structure?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't cover that. Okay.
And then if you wouldn't mind just maybe walking through the four elevations
All right.
quickly.
From the Hills Avenue, this would be the elevation that faces Hills Avenue. This would be the elevation that faces Gunby. This is the, oh, I'm sorry, this is the elevation that faces Gunby.
Excuse
This is
me.
the elevation that faces
Excuse me,
the
sir. Can you, I'm sorry, can you use
Oh,
the
I'm
microphone?
Yep. This is the elevation that faces Hills Avenue. This is the elevation facing Gunby. This is the alley elevation, and this is the north elevation adjoining the neighboring property.
Okay. So in this elevation, so a little bit different. So let's look at doors first. So the doors on the primary structure on the rear, you were saying are just going to be a single glass pane or unit. And then here it looks like you're dividing that light with a different pattern. Is that the same intent, or will you be using the same doors on the primary structure that you
No,
will
we'll,
use?
we'll be using the same doors as on the primary structure.
Okay. And then what is the materials or finish that's going to be in that open sort of corner portion?
It actually will be the same shiplap or Dutch lap siding.
Okay. Could we go to your, I believe it's your Hills elevation or the front elevation? Trying to figure this out. So if we're looking at the proposed elevation, we have the three roof lines that are the existing roof line.
Mhm.
And then just to the left on the new two-story structure under the second floor, kind of the middle window, it looks like the roof slopes back towards.
No, that is actually an existing situation, and that is, well, it's actually an existing, Ron, do you have that side
do.
elevation?
Yes, sir.
So is that small little,
Yeah.
that, okay. So is it, I guess, maybe the better question, is it just not showing up on the existing drawing?
Yeah, I think in redoing these, I show the elevation, I show a detail of the gable, but I neglected to include it right here.
Okay, so that would remain,
That's still there,
Okay.
yes. Oh, here it is, right here.
yeah, I just wanted to find out, was that something that was being removed? It looked like it was on the existing one and then not shown on the proposed.
Yeah, no,
so-
that's my goof. It's still there and will remain.
Okay. And then, do any other commissioners have any additional questions?
I do not.
On the northeast elevate, can we see the northeast elevation?
Sure, hang on. Okay,
I have no additional questions.
Commissioner Sutton?
I have no additional question.
Okay. Well, at this point, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal.
I don't think I have anything to rebut.
All right, thank you. We will now close this portion of the public hearing, and the commissioners will begin discussing the case. Any commissioners like to begin?
I personally think this project's ready to go as presented.
Okay. Commissioner Boyd?
Come a very long way. It looks really so much better. Thank you for your work.
I agree.
Well, would a commissioner like to make a motion?
I move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in ARC 20-233 for the property located at 1723 Hills Avenue, because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons. The scale, massing, proportion, trim, and detail are consistent with the guidelines.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Commissioners, Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Moving to our next case, which is ARC 20-283. The address is 613 South Oregon. This is in the Hyde Park Historic District. It is a contributing structure, which dates back to 1921. The zoning here is RS 50. There was some past action that's reflected on page 3 of the staff report. This came in front of you on August 3rd, 2020. As part of that initial review, there was an accessory structure that requested demolition that was approved, and then there was also a new construction for an accessory structure that was approved at that public hearing. A portion of that request that evening was continued to tonight, and that portion was for a 47 square foot addition. As part of that little bump out addition that is requested, there's a variance attached to that. I would request that you open these together for the simplicity of the whole presentation. Having stated that, they get 30 minutes for the certificate of appropriateness and 10 minutes for the variance. So if we could put 40 minutes on the clock. At this time, moving to the photo presentation. This was the Sanborn map, or is the Sanborn map, reflecting the property here. You see the fabric all along the immediate vicinity in 1929. This is on Oregon, and then you see Swan here as a reference point. All this has been modified because of Hyde Park Village. This is our current vicinity map, showing Hyde Park Village is here and showing the location. This is the first property to the north, behind the village, to the north of Swan. This is the current aerial map showing that same area. Swan Avenue, Oregon, portion of Hyde Park Village. Obviously, this is to the north of Swan, this property. Moving to the photos, this is the front elevation. The 47 square foot addition is back in this corner over here. A little closer shot. of that area is back here. It's a one-story addition. This is on the north elevation. Moving to the south elevation, this is behind Hyde Park Village. This is the parking that's associated with Hyde Park Village. This is the barrier wall that separates them. You see there is a bump out on this side that kind of pierces through the roof line and is proud of the body of the building. Structure is well maintained. This is showing the siding, obviously, the casing, the windows are 1/1. Showing the barge rafter, the rafter tails, and the fly rafter are piercing through the barge rafter. I guess this is the hot topic. This is the termination of the siding to grade. Some of the venting details. They have this triangular vent on the second floor, and then on the first floor have more of a rectangle gable vent. This is the abutting property to the north. And just to conclude, this is what they're looking at to the south. This is part of Hyde Park Village behind the restaurant On Swan that's there now. At this time, I'll have the agent address the board.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Mayer. I am here as the representative for the applicant, Ms. Cindy Smaney. Ready to use the Elmo? Oh. So this was before you, as Mr. Vila stated, last month. But I will recap what we're doing now. Of course, the garage was a separate part that has been approved. But it's going to be a new construction of in addition to the primary structure. It's going to be a laundry room, and the variance is in connection to that. So I know this was already covered somewhat, but I just wanted to describe the surrounding area for context. To the north, neighbor is Miss Elizabeth McLaney. She's separated from the applicant's property by a wooden 6-foot fence. It's opaque. To the west is the alley, of course, where the cars, for drive. South, On Swan Restaurant, again, it is separated by that large, probably 6-foot tall concrete barrier. And the east, of course, is the Oregon Avenue frontage. So the variance, here's a cutout of the site plan that we had submitted, which included the garage, but this is just the portion that is now at issue for the addition. The goal here is to update the outdated layout and the home. The goal is to modernize the interior, but preserve the historic exterior to the maximum extent possible. Ms. McLaney, the neighbor to the north, is in full support of the variance request. Not only is she buffered by the wall, but she has written a letter expressing her support for the project. Ms. Boyd, you had asked at the last hearing if we had a floor plan, because it would be helpful, and we do have a floor plan, so I'm going to go ahead and walk everybody through the layout of the home, because I think that will definitely be helpful. The total, as Mr. Vila said, is 47 square feet in size, so it's a very small laundry room. It's the minimum to unstack the washer and dryer and essentially have a functional laundry room. And some of it, as you can see, is actually within the existing footprint of the home. So here's the floor plan. So I'll just walk you through this a little bit. So here is the location of the washer and dryer, but it's located, and I have a picture to show a little bit later. It's located within this kind of cabinet. This is along the kitchen. This is some cabinets. And then sink, and this is also more kitchen utilities. So it's really a straight shot from the entryway, which is here, all the way to the back of the house. It's a very open floor plan in this section of the house. So you've got living room, dining room are connected and separated from the kitchen by a low counter. In this back area, it's a little tight. There is an entrance here. There's a small hallway, a bathroom here. There's also a bathroom here. And then this is the second story, which is actually situated about here. So the bathrooms are kind of all in the same central area on that side of the house. And then there's a den towards the back of the house here, which is kind of open, and this is the stairs up to the second floor. So the existing area of the washer and dryer is, of course, where the water hookups are for the washer and dryer. And to put it anywhere else, it would make the floor plan irregular. If we put it in, say, for example, one of the bedrooms, it would reduce the value of the home because the bedrooms are not that big to begin with, the house is not that big to begin with, and it would create irregularities, reduce the value, and it would not be a sensible location, plus you'd have to replumb it. And that would be invasive and very costly. Of course, we would not put it in the living or the dining room because you would also be able to see it from the windows to the house when you're walking on the right-of-way. And in the den, not only is the AC pad here, so you really couldn't do a bump out here because there's equipment over here, but there's also a grand oak tree over here whose canopy comes about over this portion of the house, and so it limits the ability to build in that whole corner. That would be the southeast corner of the house. So this is the most sensible place. It's the only feasible, logical place to do a slight bump out here on the back of the house. It doesn't disrupt the historic porch, which I'll show you a picture of as well. And it's minimal. It'll be 5 feet away from Ms. McLeany's property. So I'll keep this on hand in case we want to refer back to it, but I'll just show you a few pictures to give color to the interior of the house and kind of you can see if you were walking through it. So here's the living room, front door. As you can see, it's not that big. There's a half wall that kind of separates the living room from the dining room. Here is the that kitchen counter that separates the kitchen from the living space. This is the door to the hall, so the master bedroom is behind this wall, and the other bedroom is behind the wall over here, which is behind the kitchen. The bathrooms are very maxed out in terms of what's going on in there, so I mean, it would be strange to have a laundry room in the bathroom, but even if you could, you wouldn't be able to do it in these because they're pretty much at capacity here. This is the den. As you can see, these windows overlook the porch. So this area doesn't have any plumbing, and also to extend anything from this area would protrude greatly into the porch, which is a very characteristic porch, and it has a really nice look. So that would negatively impact the home's character. So here are the stacked washer and dryer. I got down on my hands and knees when I was taking these photos, and I examined this you can see this wood piece right here. It's lightly colored wood. That was apparently crammed under there by the previous owner to mitigate in part the fact that when you turn a washer and dryer on, they rock violently because the floor is apparently not completely level here, which, to our point, it's not like Miss Maney has a sort of okay laundry room that she just wants to make it better. It's that Miss Maney doesn't have a functional laundry room at all. If it were a functional laundry room, the machines wouldn't rock, the floor wouldn't be unstable, they wouldn't have had to add this piece here to sort of balance it out. Although I know it's not part of the variance criteria, part of the reason behind this project is that Miss Maney has an older mother who lives with her through half of the year, and this stacked washers and dryers are dangerous. And so the minimum variance that we're requesting is to unstack them, make sure the floor is level, make sure these things don't rock and roll when we turn them on, and have enough room to access them. And here's the kitchen. So this hood right here, a little bit to the side of that is where this faces the den, and this is the door to the porch. Here's the back of the home. So as I was describing, this is where the den is. Here are the doors to the porch. Here, this wall here would be where the location of the washer and dryer currently are, and they would remain there, but there would be a bump out right about here. And here is perspectives. You can see the grand oak and how far that canopy extends over the house. It's a wonderful tree. And then this is the side of the house with the existing bump out that comes fairly close to that wall. Couldn't add something on this side because, as you can see, there's the electrical and the air conditioning, and once again, the tree's canopy extends over this portion of the house. Here are the elevations, which I will also show again in connection with the certificate of appropriateness. But I wanted to show these now in the context of a few photos that I'm going to show you of houses in the surrounding area that have a similar bump out feature as this. Here is, of course, Miss Maney's house, and this is her side yard, and here the arrow here is the location where the bump out would be, all the way in the back. And here's what it would look like from the right. I mean, here's what we see from the right-of-way. This tall, opaque fence. Again, the bump out is all the way in the back, will be all the way in the back there. It's the least visually intrusive spot that it could be. And you'll note, actually, so these are some photos I took in the surrounding blocks above Swan in that High Park district. This is a very good representation of what we're proposing, other than the direction of the roof, because we're proposing the roof to be angled the other way to be in line with the other bump out. But you can see if you're, I'm on the right of way here, and I can see this bump out here. The roof cuts in a little bit there, and then it connects here and comes out. And so it's not super visible from the right of way, but it is there, and it's a very characteristic feature of these craftsman style homes. You see it all over the place. I apologize for the hedges in the way of this photo, but of course I had to stay on the sidewalk. There is a bump out here, which actually has the roof that we're proposing, where it's kind of the opposite direction of the roof of the main structure. And these these are showing various sizes and heights of these bump outs. It's a very eclectic mix. Every house has such a different layout, such a different character, but they share these similar features. This is all the way up to the second story. Here are houses with bump outs kind of facing each other. Again, sorry for the trees, but there, as you can see, these windows here, there's a bump out here, and there's one here. So these are even facing each other, and they're closer to the property line. And I think these are really great examples of just what an eclectic mix of roof lines and massing that we've got, and in so many different elevations on this one. So again, we've got aerials. I wanted to highlight the fence that separates Miss Maney's home from her neighbor, Miss McLaney. So the bump out would be right about here, behind the fence, and the first floor elevation of Miss Maney's existing home. If you stand in that side yard, you really can't even see Miss McLaney's home, and I imagine it's the same on the other side where you can't really see each other's first floor elevations. So Miss McLaney won't really even be able to see the addition. And this, I circled the canopy of the grand tree. As you can see, it's really a huge tree that covers this whole portion of the backyard and even part of the house. So I wanted to specifically address each of the variance criteria one at a time, although of course this presentation thus far has been to show you how we meet these criteria, but now I just want to discuss the criteria, just read them to you and then discuss how we meet them. So the first criteria is the alleged hardships or practical difficulties are unique and singular with respect to the property or with respect to a structure or building thereon, and are not those suffered in common with other properties, structures, or buildings similarly located. So it is the existing home structure, Miss Maney's unique floor plan, that creates the practical difficulty that she faces. Her floor plan is unique to her home in that there's no other place on site for this washer and dryer. She does not have the modern amenity of a washer and dryer, of a functional laundry room, which is something that is in modern times very normal. Even my 700 square foot apartment has a little spot for it. I'm sure I pay for it in the rent. Other homes in the surrounding area have entirely different floor plans, as evident from the pictures that I just showed you of a few houses in the area and everything we've seen tonight. So it may be that there are some houses that have room where you could add a laundry room and you wouldn't have to have a variance, but Miss Maney is not in that situation. So I think the walkthrough of the floor plan demonstrates the practical difficulty and that the location we've chosen is the only location feasible. The second criterion is the easy one, of course. Hardship or practical difficulty does not result from the actions of the applicant. The existing home structure was built in 1921. The lot lines in the home are what they are, and Miss Maney did not purchase the home until 2013. So, of course, they are entirely independent of her. The third criteria, the variance, if granted, will not substantially interfere with or injure the health, safety, or welfare of others whose property would be affected by the allowance of the variance. Mrs. Elizabeth McLeany is the only person who would be directly affected by this, as she is the only resident neighbor to the north. On Swan, there's a huge buffer wall, and they're not part of the district. Miss McLeany is in full support, and she's buffered by the 6-foot wall. The minimal size of the addition that we're asking for, in addition to the fact that it's only a 2-foot variance, and there will still be 5 feet between the fence and the new addition, and the fact that the bump out is consistent not only with the existing style of the home having a bump out on the south side, but it's also consistent with the character of the homes in the surrounding area, and that it's the craftsman style. So it won't injure any of the properties in the area because it'll be completely consistent with the historic character. The variance is in harmony with and serves the general intent and purpose of this chapter and the adopted Tampa Comprehensive Plan. Again, the addition will complement the historic character of this home as well as the historic character of the district. It increases the value of the home by adding a critical modern quality of life element to the home. It will greatly increase the value of her home, and the goal of the district is to ensure preservation of the homes and the maintenance of their value. You want to attract people to the district who care about these homes, who want to maintain their value, maintain their appearance, and to update them with these modern features attracts people to buy. Allowing the variance will result in substantial justice being done, considering both the public benefits intended to be secured by this chapter and the individual hardships or practical difficulty that will be suffered due to a failure of the board to grant a variance. The purpose of historic preservation districts is to preserve, but not to require homeowners to live in a time capsule of 1921 or whenever the individual house was built. Surrounding property owners will not experience adverse impacts. An increased value to the home benefits everybody in a district. The practical difficulty of the layout that I've shown you, explained to you through the floor plan and the pictures, as well as the fact that we're asking for a minimal variance and our neighbors are in support in favor of granting the request. And finally, the variance, if granted, will allow development that is consistent with the design standards and is compatible with the historic pattern of development within the historic district in which the subject property is located. So this is an addition to the home that is consistent with the design of the house, consistent with the design of the houses in the area, and extends this house's desirability and its relevancy into the 21st century. It's consistent with the development pattern overall, and it promotes preservation of a home in a district where an applicant could get a certificate of appropriateness to demolish a home, to build an entirely new home, perhaps within the setbacks, but they could build an entirely new home with a modern layout. But Miss Maney loves this home. She bought it because she loves its historic character. She's trying to simply modernize it in the most minimally intrusive way possible. It'll look good. It'll actually be a positive addition to the house. Buyers in historic preservation districts want to preserve these homes, but they don't expect that they can never update them appropriately to modern standards and modern life. So since, as Mr. Vila said, I'm going to discuss the certificate of appropriateness now as well. So I have the full site plan here, a little better. Again, this garage that was at the previous hearing and has been approved and is underway. But here is the addition in context of the entire residence. As you can see, there's that bump out there, and it kind of balances out. Here, the walls are both pretty close on either side. And I'll leave that to the side. Here are our wall sections, and this is the existing, shows the existing cabinet basically, and then this is the plan for the 47 square foot addition. Again, you can see a lot of that is within the existing footprint of the home. Our materials are all going to match the home entirely. You know, the design is to be like the bump out on the other side. So we're going to have the same exposed rafters, overhang soffit will match the existing entirely. We're going to have hardy plank, this colonial smooth siding in a color that matches the existing home. Roof material, dimensional shingle will also, of course, match the existing roof. These double hung single pane windows match the existing, as well as trim around the windows, trim on all sides of the house, be hardy trim. The foundation, this is actually the foundation in the corner of the house where the bump out will go. So it'll be slab on grade and will match existing. And we don't propose any hardware or lighting with this. There's a window on the north side facing Ms. McLeany's property. There's no window on the front because the window's on the side. That's what is currently there, and so we're maintaining the character of the windows being on the side. And just to briefly go through the Hyde Park design criteria, maintains the height. There's no change to height. The width is proportionate. It balances it out on either side. Massing is, of course, characteristic of all the homes that we see in Hyde Park. It does not alter the historic setback along Oregon Avenue. There's no change to the front of the home. No change to orientation. Site coverage is minimally changed, less than 47 square feet, since part of it is in the existing footprint of the home. It doesn't affect rhythm, spacing, using the same materials as the existing home, so we're maintaining the materials used in the district, as well as the trim. We're maintaining the facade and window patterns, as I mentioned earlier, by including a window on the north elevation. Doesn't affect projections. We're mirroring the roof form of the existing bump out, same roofing material as the home. And finally, we're including the level of detail and quality that is present in the existing home's material, style, and character. And that is my presentation.
Thank you. At this point, staff will now present the staff report.
Commissioners, Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. I would direct all your questions at this time to discuss the variance. The agent did discuss that the property owner to the north submitted a letter. We had that letter in the record here. She supported the prior request for the demolition and the new construction, and then also she touches upon the variance here, that she supports the variance request as well. So we have this in the file.
Thank you. At this point, we will open the hearing to any public comment for the variance only. If anyone would like to speak for or against. All right, seeing and hearing none, the commissioners will now begin asking questions for the variance only.
I have no question at this time.
I have no questions.
I don't have any either.
I have no questions either. Well, the applicant like a rebuttal for the variance.
No, thank you.
Okay. At this point, we will now close the public hearing and the commissioners will discuss the case. Or make a motion.
I have a particular problem with the nature of the variance for this project. I still do. First of all, key of which is I find it hard to understand why under number 2 of the hardship criteria that this hardship is actually a practical difficulty that has not yet been resolved and is actually a result from the owner's desire to impact an addition into a side yard. The rear deck is not an original component part of the building fabric, although it is very attractive. But in the same sense, it is not unusual to find buildings of the period to have a very traditional approach to a kitchen porch, which may in times actually have some sort of a storage utility structure attached to that. I could see how an addition for a laundry room or a laundry pantry could be entirely accommodated straight out back the kitchen into this area of the rear deck. Because in all practicality, the alleged hardship under item number 1 has not been shown to be a practical difficulty based on the unique or the singular respect of this building, its arrangement, or its placement on the site. Variances are meant to be used under very unusual circumstances. And I don't see the circumstance being proved here tonight.
I actually would like, if we could, get the site plan back up on the screen so that I could discuss that point. Please, thank you. What is the, Ron, staff? I don't know if I could just ask the agent again.
We'd have to have a motion to open.
Right.
Would anyone
Can we
like?
reopen the session? I'd like to make a motion to reopen the session to ask a question of the agent.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against?
So, I'm sorry. Back up to the site plan, please. Thank you. I was hoping that the dimension would be on here. It's not. That's why I have to reopen. The dimension from the accessory structure facade to the rear facade of the house, not the deck.
No, I don't think we have that because we were concerned with, when we were originally making the site plan for the garage, we were concerned with
So-
the deck.
Commissioner Sutton,
Yes.
not knowing that dimension and what the current zoning allows for this particular lot, that would be something that the agent and the owner would have to address.
Correct.
But in terms of your statement in regards to making a hardship or having a hardship, the only hardship I see here now is potentially the fact that the accessory structure, which is now underway, may in fact impact that. That other than the accessory structure's unknown distance, I tend to agree. I feel like there are solutions, and a number of designers would be able to show you those. So I fail to see that there are no other solutions for the client, for the,
You see, we already have the 5'4" clearance between the two structures.
that's the deck. I'm not talking about the deck from
Yeah, that's the
building to
deck from the
building.
building. And we're already impacting part of the deck, so why don't we take over the entire, if you will, the north side of that deck for a laundry room?
If I may, it would require us to move the double doors, which
Mhm.
are right there by
Yeah.
I'm just not sure if that, I mean, that would be a major change to the back of the house. So I'm not, again, I mean, I'm not sure how feasible that would be, because the way the den is located, I just don't know if we could move those doors without starting to move the windows, change the entire back of the house in terms of access and facade.
But you're already proposing an addition encroaching into a side yard.
Which we find to be the least intrusive to the structure and to the neighbor, certainly. So, I mean, by doing that, we're maintaining the way the house looks to the maximum extent possible, whereas if we put it into the deck, we're going to be moving the doors, moving the windows, really encroaching into the deck. So that's, that's what we had come to, the minimal amount there. And if I may, to your point about the criteria number 2, that it's not the fault or the cause of the applicant, that my understanding legally is that that is more aimed towards the existing conditions having no, the applicant has had no bearing on the existing conditions. So the hardship being the location of the house now, the location of the washer and dryer now. So it really does have nothing to do with her. I just want to clarify that point.
That, I understand that point entirely, because the existing building is entirely compliant in its placement on its site.
Except for the existing bump out on the south, probably.
Granted. But it is not a precedent.
Any additional questions before we close the public hearing again, just to make sure?
Actually, to follow up on the distance between the garage and the house, the proposed addition currently does project towards the garage. Has that been vetted properly in terms of that distance and whether or not that's allowable with the current zoning for this lot?
I mean, we had this whole site plan went through review. Mr. Joel Souza reviewed this, and his comment about the distance was only with respect, and you saw both of these features being shown on the site plan, and his only comment was with respect to the wood deck and the proposed garage. We actually shifted the garage up so they would have the proper transportation setbacks, and we made sure it was still within the setbacks required by zoning.
There were no comments from the city in regards to
The 2 new structures, no. The new addition.
to the little bump out
Correct.
to the garage?
Correct.
As currently sits?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
Any additional questions before we close it? Okay. I have a question for legal. Do I need to allow the applicant
Yes.
time for rebuttal
Yes.
again? Okay. So the applicant is now allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal.
May I take a quick moment to discuss with co-counsel? Is that acceptable?
That's fine.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So in terms of rebuttal, I mean, I think I more was worried about addressing the comments, so that was kind of a rebuttal, as it were. But we've shown what we find to be substantial competent evidence that we meet these criteria. The criteria do contemplate a practical difficulty, which is not the same as a hardship. So I think what we're proposing here is contemplated by the variance criteria. It's certainly in line with the character of the homes. I think that's the ultimate goal of a historic preservation district. And I think that we're going to improve the value of this home. Ms. Maney intends to live here. This is not an investment property. This is not a property that's going to get flipped. And Ms. McLaney, who's lived there for, I believe, quite some time, is fully in support. So we see no reason why this is not fully approvable. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we will close this portion of the public hearing. Now the commissioners will ask questions for the variance only again. Any additional questions or comments?
I have no additional comment or question.
Neither do I.
Commissioner
I don't
Wood?
either.
So, unlike my fellow commissioners, I'm on the opposite end of this one. I personally feel that although there could be other options of where you place your laundry room, it starts to, there's 100 different ways you could kind of lay this out and design it and make it work. But I think at this point, if we start going down that road, we're going to start changing more and more of the exterior of the building and the house that maybe isn't necessarily needed. Looking at the west elevation, which is the rear, there are those banks of windows where it's in the den and where we would be asking you to place that bump out is really the only exterior doors on that side. So now we're starting to look at different flows within the building. So the existing layout of the interior is starting to change that, changing the elevations. Personally, I think we could add that portion of the bump out and it could always be removed later on, which is something that as an addition you could do to not drastically change it. So personally, I don't necessarily see an issue of placing it where it is, but that's my personal thought. Knowing that, is any other comments or anything else to discuss from the commissioners? Okay.
No.
Is there a motion the commissioner would like to make on the variance only?
I move that the variance request for case ARC 20-283 for the property located at 613 South Oregon Avenue with an encroachment of 2 feet for eaves and gutters be denied due to the failure of the petitioner to meet the burden of proof with respect to all 6 of the hardship criteria set forth in the City of Tampa Code and ordinances, specifically that the alleged hardship or practical difficulty has not been shown to be unique and singular with respect to the property in question, and that 2, the hardship or practical difficulty is a result from the desired applications and actions of the applicant.
I second the motion.
Do I, quick question for legal, do I need to ask the applicant how it, in terms of the conditions that were stated, they understand it or no?
There were no, I didn't
Okay.
hear Mr. Commissioner state any conditions.
All right, then, I'm sorry, did you second?
I second the
All right.
motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
And
Because it's a,
just for the record, just to clarify, that was 2 that were against?
yes.
Okay, against the motion.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Against the denial.
So because of a tie, it automatically means a continuation. And then I'm not sure what date we have for that.
Mr. Chairman, I think probably just for this evening, we'll continue to October the 5th and evaluate the entire agenda after tomorrow night's meeting.
All right, thank you.
And that would also include the certificate of appropriateness.
The certificate of appropriateness, you'll need a motion to continue that, because that was not the basis of the motion for the tied.
We only need to continue the.
The certificate of appropriateness.
Yes.
I move to grant a continuance in the case ARC 20-283 for the property located at 613 South Oregon Avenue to the October 5th public hearing at 6 p.m.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. Thank you.
Commissioners, Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. The next item on the agenda this evening is case ARC 20-362 at 5409 North Seminole Avenue in the Seminole Heights Historic District. The request is for an addition to an existing structure that is contributing to the historic district. So this is the Seminole Heights Historic District. You can see that this subject property is very near the center of the district. It is just north of Hillsborough Avenue. And this is the 1920s Sanborn map of the area. The property is shown in green here at the southeast corner of Seminole Avenue and Mohawk. And this is the present-day aerial. You can see that the property now has a accessory building and a pool added to the site. And Hillsborough Avenue is a bit more obvious down here on the south. This is the front of the house. This is facing east. This would be the west side of the house. The south side, there's a bit of vegetation in the way there. That's the south elevation. And the north elevations, it's a little difficult to see with the shadows as well. Sometimes the sun does not cooperate, but the house here extends back there a little further and is obscured by the vegetation. And this is the rear of the property, it's east side, or the rear of the house, rather. This is one of the details on the house, the gable vent. And this photo shows the pattern, the stucco texture on the front columns. You can also see the window on the front of the house on the porch. And this photo is illustrating the weave of the siding where it meets on the corners. So there are no corner boards on the original structure. This is a detail of the eave and the brackets. This is on the bump out on the north side. And then in this picture behind the cars, there's the existing accessory structure. And the alley is just to the east of it. This is taken from Mohawk. Here we have the property abutting to the south on Seminole Avenue. And this would be the property across Seminole Avenue to the west. This is the property across Mohawk to the north. This is a view on Seminole Avenue. And here we are again on Seminole, looking north. This is the accessory building that's on that property that you were just shown that's north of the subject site. Just looking across Mohawk. This is a view looking east on Mohawk. And finally, a picture looking west along Mohawk Avenue. So at this time, I'd like the agent to come forward for this presentation.
Hello, I'm Michael Marty. I'm the agent and architect for the TAC residence. Do I start now?
Yes.
This is also my first time, so I'll hope to keep it going smoothly. Thanks for that, Elaine. Here's the site plan. I'll direct you to that. The shaded portions are the existing structures that we have on site, and this dashed line here is the edge of the existing structure at the rear. We're looking to add on a portion to the first story and then a whole new second story structure kind of going along the airplane bungalow route. Parking does not conform right now as it is, so this is the dashed line of the existing parking which you saw on the street view. So we're proposing to do a tandem parking spot off the alley for 2 cars so that we can get the parking to conform. We do have an option to do a circular driveway, which is dashed in here. I think one of the conditions was to look at this parking option because the tandem isn't conforming to the neighboring areas. So that's an option we do have, and the other option is to keep the existing wood fence to kind of shield this tandem parking from the street and then put vegetation there. To do the circular parking, we'd have to remove one small tree and relocate it to a different portion of the site, but that is also an option we're willing to look at. Here is the demo plan. You can see that we're removing a few portions of the existing rear wall and then one partition wall in the existing kitchen. The whole front portion of this house has the historic charm and millwork, and we're not touching that and keeping it as it was originally designed. Moving to the first floor plan, here is the proposed plan. Really the idea is to reconfigure the back portion of the house to kind of the current standards of design and living and open it to the backyard and have a stronger connection to the pool and to the accessory structure. For the second story, it's just the 2 bedrooms and a bath. This is for a growing family, so the existing portion is just a two-bedroom, 1 bath. So this will give them the room to grow into the house a little bit more and kind of bring it up to the neighboring properties, which you saw were a little bit larger than this house. Quick roof plan. We're just removing this rear hipped portion, which is kind of the secondary element to this house. And it's just from this point on, we abut up to our second story. On the top of the sheets, you can see the existing elevations, and on the bottom, you can see the proposed. On the existing, we are keeping the primary elevation and facade, gable roof, all left alone to its original piece, and then we are adding on in place of an existing deck here to the second story. On the back elevation, you can see the hip roof that we are removing and then building on top of. And the idea is to do a kind of a cornered window, which I'll show you an example of historically. And then with a 1-story portion facing the neighbor. We went with a nod to the existing hip roof that we're removing to bring down the scale of the house towards the existing neighbor's house. And here is a typical wall section showing what we plan on doing. Wood frame construction on a concrete base, and the idea is that we'll match the concrete texture of the columns and kind of pull the language from that into that. We plan on matching the miter siding with wood, so everything will be consistent with the overhangs and the finishes. Here, I think was one of the conditions to show detail of the porch screening and the wood rail. It's just vertical pickets on the rail. And for the screen, we're going to use a mini track system, so it's very minimal, and you put wood trim on top of that, so it relates to the kind of historic screens that we do have on the property over the windows. Here is a zoomed-in version of the overhangs. We're going to match the beadboards, rafter tails, and the wood siding. We're proposing doing the high-definition asphalt shingles, which I think they have right now, but they're at the end of their lifespan. Metal roof for the porch, so it's just really a secondary utility roof. It's a thought process behind that. For the windows, we plan on matching the windows with wood windows. There's a few companies in the Seminole Heights and Hyde Park area that will match the windows construction-wise, so they would be identical to that. And here's an option for the door, a glass panel, or we were looking at doing a French door with the same pattern of the windows, just elongated. Hardware-wise, we're looking at Craftsman-style hardware. This is only exterior door, and the window hardware to match what's existing. Hard to see in this photo, but that is an example of the mini track screen system, so you don't really see the screen connection, it's just the wood. And for a light fixture, we're looking more towards a Craftsman-style Wright-inspired fixture. I think we're only adding one to the back of this property. And here is a zoomed-in version of the mitered siding that we're going to be matching, so same exposure, same everything, and that is a close-up of the stucco detail we looked at earlier. One of the conditions was to look at saving a pair of windows on the south elevation. This is the plan I showed you before, and here is an option to keep that. It really just reduces the 1-story mass to pull away from that second window we were going to remove here. So that's something that we're willing to do. Ideally, we would love the additional square footage, not to have to go underneath the staircase into the bathroom, but it's something that we're willing to work with. Here is an example of an arts and crafts style house from England, and they did a corner window. So the idea is somewhat of a bay window or a box bay. We're limited to the space with the existing pool. So the idea is just to open up the house at this portion to that. And I can show the elevation of that again. That's just this corner here. So really just opening to the backyard, but using the same style windows. And I think that's all I have for now.
Thank you. At this point, staff will present the staff report.
Commissioner, staff finds that this application is consistent with the Seminole Heights design guidelines. You can see in the staff report that we did have a few conditions. See, I did discuss a few of these with the agent prior to today's hearing. Let's see, one of our concerns was the on-site tandem parking parallel to the side street to Mohawk. That's typically not consistent with the pattern in Seminole Heights. Usually, if you see tandem parking, it's accessed from the front of the lot. I believe the applicant did review some of the site conditions and constraints there. Primarily that the accessory building is, which may have been built as a garage, is no longer in use as that, and there is not adequate space between the edge of that building wall to the right-of-way along Mohawk. So there's not adequate space there to put parking in the driveway. I'm not sure if I saw the location of the mechanical units. Like a little more information about how the addition is differentiated from the original structure.
Do you want me to respond to those now?
No.
Not yet.
And I had some suggestions about the roof forms, about considering simplifying or altering them a little bit to be more consistent with the primary original roof form. And I believe there's a window shown on the north side, north elevation, that staff had some questions about what exactly those materials were in between the windows. With that, I'm available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we will open the public hearing to any public comment. If anyone would like to speak for or against. All right, seeing none. Commissioners will now ask questions. Anyone like to begin?
Yes, I have 2 items that I'd like to have clarified, and part of that was touched base by our staff member here. Could you please refer back to your site plan, sir? Mechanical equipment.
Yes, so right now we have mechanical equipment. It's
Is that
existing.
you equipment?
This one my pen is at is existing. We have a water heater back here. The
Mhm.
new unit will be next to that, just
Okay,
in
so-
between the windows.
So that's going to continue to both service your existing building as well as your new addition, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
That is screened by a fence, is that how I am correctly reading this plan?
Yes, we have an existing fence, and then you saw the vegetation that also screens it as well.
So you've got a combination of the both of them going on there. Okay, that clarifies that. On this plan, I think that you have developed a sympathetic parking plan, although tandem can sometimes be kind of difficult to live with upon occasion, but you have both a variety of entrance and exiting points for this between the alley and Mohawk Avenue. I think even with that sweet connection into Mohawk would be to your owner's advantage on this. So I congratulate you on addressing this very, very, very sticky item. Even though you had the original side-by-side parking available off the alley, I think you've made a significant improvement here, entirely within the
Commissioner
boundaries
Sutton.
of your site.
Commissioner Sutton, just real quick, just understanding that right now the second access point on there that's in between those trees is not included. That would be where it'd be located.
That is correct. I understand that point.
So are you suggesting that are you asking to add that in, or?
No, I will leave that as an option. I think that it's well thought out.
Okay.
That's the nature of my comment. Second general item I'd like to discuss. Could you go back over again through your elevations and explain to us how you plan on contending with your foundation enclosure? The reason why I ask that is that your section suggests that this is going to be a wood frame floor over a crawl space. How do you
Yes.
plan on ventilating this?
We'll have to add a crawl space fence, typically the brass ones that are pretty small throughout the new portion.
Mhm.
I don't think the existing photos show it, but on this house, the siding and the horizontal trim do touch grade.
Uh-huh.
So I did want to avoid that and just relate to the stucco. So what's not shown, there will be crawl space fence. around.
So you're going to have a variety of block vents, if you will,
Yes.
on a periodic spacing.
Almost like little portholes is the idea.
And this band, which is basically going to be concrete block for all practical purposes, you're going to have finished in that same rough texture as the front columns.
Yes.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next.
There's a reference, may we see the north elevation?
North elevation. Yes.
Okay. Window grouping.
I think it's this panel here that's in question.
Okay, so you have a smooth cement board panel with wood trim in between these two windows.
Yes, so the idea was it to be a filled-in window. Behind that is the range wall and the hood. And this gives me a flat spot to put the exhaust instead of sticking out the siding.
I do also find that unusual. Okay, I don't have any questions at this time.
Can you zoom out so I can see the whole sheet of the elevations that are currently up? Thank you. In one of your comments, I believe you said that the hip roof condition was not an original condition. Is that correct? Did I hear you correctly?
I wanted to throw a nod to this hip. I'm calling it the secondary kind of roof structure. It's very clear to me that it was really back of house is how it was treated originally. So to me, that was the least valuable portion of the house. So that's why we chose to do the addition there compared to the gables on the two front elevations.
I'm just trying to figure out if that was indeed an existing condition or not.
I believe it is, in the interior, it does seem to be the same construction. It might have been at one time an open porch or a sleeping porch.
Okay. I have some misgivings about the rear porch addition and the, really more or less the language being utilized there.
Sure.
It seems a bit foreign to the era of the actual bungalow. So do you have any historical precedents from the district that aligns with this language?
Is it specifically the column capitals on this?
It is actually the scalloping of the detailing at the head conditions. It seems more Victorian than the bungalow style.
I don't think I have any neighboring examples in the neighborhood from that. The idea was just to have something a little more informal compared to the front porch, which is a little more meatier. So something a little more delicate was just the thought process.
Okay. Also, in terms of the paired windows to the left of the rear porch on the east elevation, you discussed a little bit about this boxed window idea. And were there historic precedents within the district as well? I know you showed that image from England, but the age of that particular structure was much, much older than this. So again, I think there's some borrowed elements potentially from different eras that I'm having a hard time buying into.
Right. Well, I see this cottage as an arts and crafts style, which that English house was, so I imagine they pulled from that kind of precedence before. So that was just the thought for this. Ideally, I would love a box bay, which I think is very typical in the neighborhood. Just with the pool, I'm not able to do that.
Can we get the camera to zoom into elevation on the lower left, please? I just want to see what the notations say. Can you, I need to see the words too, sorry. Okay. I have no other questions at this time or comments.
So just kind of starting off on this one, since this is up, I would tend to agree with my fellow commissioners. You look at the front of the house on this, and then look at the back of the house. I'd almost say it's two completely different houses. the railing that you have for the stairs coming up, the caps on those columns, the way that this porch is kind of detailed, that corner portion where, you're going from more of a horizontal nature to a vertical delineation with the vertical V-groove paneling. The front and backs just don't necessarily seem to talk to each other. If we could zoom out real quick with the camera. I have just some questions. Maybe let's look at your, I'm sorry, it might be the front elevation. Did you cut your elevations at a certain point to where we're starting to miss or not show all the buildings? So in this, like, you have your bay windows on the addition on the north side. Those don't seem to appear on your west elevation.
That's correct. This bay window isn't showing up here.
Okay.
Can I speak to the first point you made?
Yes.
So I think the thought process, one, that it's not 100% matchy-matchy was this has helped to distinguish from the old structure to the new structure, as if it could be removed at a later point and the original structure would be intact. So I think that's why we took a little bit of liberty with the design language, but still brought in the typical overhangs, detailing of the wood into that. So I think that's how I think it was just thought out.
So, all right, let's leave it on that elevation, the
Sure.
south elevation. So the way that we're detailing that corner on this elevation, so we have those three windows on the, kind of the back side, and as it wraps around, we just kind of end that smooth wood paneling with that trim, kind of right at where the head height is.
This piece right here.
Yeah. Is that just to align with the window trim, or?
It's consistent all the way around. This is just a deeper overhang here, so you're not seeing the siding on top of that. But it is the typical window trim, just it turns the corner on a 90 degree. So that cap would also do the same as existing pieces here.
I mean, traditionally, you would see that go all the way up to, either that would die into a larger mass or an element, or that would go all the way up to the roof.
Yes, but that's, I think, where the box bay kind of component comes into that, kind of that reference, where that necessarily won't go to the primary overhang or roof structure, where that would project out and have its own kind of smaller piece. That was just kind of taken from that language.
Okay. Then I know one of the conditions that or one of the comments that was made on staff report is, how do you delineate between existing materials and new materials? It might be written in your notes, so I apologize if I can't read it, but it looks like some of the roof is going to remain, and then new roofing materials, I would imagine the same thing with the siding. Is that correct?
The entire roof is failing right now, so they'll have the same new shingles on top of all of it, which I think they are asphalt shingles right now.
Okay.
They've reached the end of their lifespan, but for here, it's a continuation of the same siding. Unfortunately, we couldn't do step into or out with the new structure, just the way the floor plan worked. The existing house is right about here, so I couldn't step back that portion of that mass.
Okay. And that center pane between those windows, did I understand correctly that the intention of that was to allow for the exhaust for the gas?
That was the secondary intention of that. It's just more to be a filled-in window. It's really decorative. It could be removed, and you could just have the siding in between, like the traditional windows do on this house.
Okay. And then, so your foundation, it's, the existing building besides, or the existing house besides the porch has a much lower line and kind of elevation.
Yes.
For the new elevation, you decided to take that higher. Was there maybe a reason behind that?
I wanted to pull it up from grade. Right now, the horizontal board doesn't have a vent and it touches grade. So I didn't want to replicate that. I wanted to be able to do the vents into the foundation, into the block. I just didn't care for that to continue all the way down in this
Okay.
case.
All right. Do any of the additional, or any other commissioners have any additional questions? All right. At this point, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal.
Just speaking back to the foundation, I think the idea is kind of with the front column, bringing that down this pier rests right onto grade. So kind of taking that language that we're taking from the stucco base is kind of how we're bringing that portion of the language of the front of the house to the back. That being said, I did like a lot of suggestions from the staff report, so we are flexible with that. I think that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. At this point, we will close the public hearing, and the commissioners will now begin discussing the case. Commissioner Boyd, would you like to begin?
I am having similar struggles as what you brought up. We often see additions that are different from the existing structure. You had brought up earlier, or the applicant might have brought up that to be removed at a later date to go back to the original structure. There are some conflicts, I think, with the way that the new structure is being added. And then sort of the departure of design style and almost over-ornamented addition to the contributing structure, 1924. I'm struggling with some of the details.
I share some of that same sentiment. I think part of it is the jarring nature of how things have changed front to back. I mean, we have a very traditional American bungalow, which is very rectilinear, very horizontal from the front. Overall, the massing of the whole addition, I think you've done a very successful job in mating that to your existing one-story building. Usually it's a very jarring sort of a situation, but I think you've massaged that quite well. But then we move around to the back, and we have these almost Tudorish, almost Victorian influences for some of the elements that you have there. We have the curves on your porch, which are not reflected anywhere else on the building. We have, I think, the vertical panels for your gang corner, which we don't have anywhere else on the project. And I'm wondering if perhaps it's not that we're objecting to or thinking against about your gang windows or the nature of your screened porch. It's just that those little bits and pieces just don't jive with the rest of the building. As an example, I could see how your division of your panels on your porch would be more sympathetic to the house if they were all more rectilinear in their nature. I could see how your gang element for your window corner might be more sympathetic to the whole of the building. Let's say instead of doing vertical wood panels as you have, perhaps doing something more monolithic. You already have a monolithic panel going in between a pair of windows, and you already have stucco on the building. Why not do those in a similar monolithic material? It's still part of the existing fabric, just used differently. I don't have a problem with being different on the backside. It's all your addition, and you're following the guidelines appropriately in differentiating the new from the old. But there's a little bit of jarring going on here between what is new and the old. There should be a bit more of a sympathy, I would think, in this case, because the massing works very well here. You're kind of like losing the momentum with this contrary fussiness.
I agree with all the comments made. I think if you reconsider the style of the existing structure and learn from that style, there's a lot of things that you can do to tweak the elements that you've introduced. and be more consistent with the district and the ideas behind the guidelines. I agree that the form and the massing are quite nice. I especially like the fact that you did remove the hip roof, and even if it was a historic element, I think there's enough of the gable play throughout, especially from the two street sides, that works really well, and it's in keeping with the style and the characteristic of that particular type of bungalow. I just feel like there's too much that's been introduced that's foreign to the language. And even though there are certain camps that regard additions very differently, and you can certainly introduce new materials and ideologies in some respect, I do think it's kind of odd to bring in what I consider actually to be two very different styles. In fact, I read the box window more as a Tudor element, and then the porch being a Victorian element. So those two styles coming in and trying to speak with the bungalow is just too uncomfortable at this time. So I'm really at an impasse here in terms of.
Yeah, I would say, kind of the first off, the party or the larger movements that you make on this, the form, the mass, I think work great with the existing house. I think what happens is, as you start to get into those details, you start to lose some of the identity of the existing house. It's almost as if you wanted to make sure you had everything kind of included, and it just kind of got lost. But I think the overall direction of the larger pieces is in the right place. I think it's just those details just have to be fine-tuned a bit. Any additional questions or comments? I guess actually comments.
I agree with the idea of fine-tuning the details, but how far do you think this can be handled? I mean, do you think this is a staff item, or is this something that needs to be represented?
In this particular case, I don't feel that it's something that can be left with staff. I think this is something in regards to how those pieces come back together and speak to the larger pieces, especially because this is a corner lot, so it has two public faces. And one of those key elements that we're talking about, the porch, is read significantly on that facade. So I wouldn't feel comfortable pushing it just back to staff and having them resolve it,
So you would be more inclined to think of this as a continuation?
in my opinion.
I tend to agree with you.
Would a commissioner like to make a motion?
Okay. I wanted to first, Kamaria Pettismaker from the legal department, I'm sorry. So if the commissioners are considering whether to make a motion to continue it, that has not been brought up by the applicant, so I don't know if the applicant wants that to be the option.
Do we have to reopen up the questioning period?
No.
So the option is, you do have the option for us to vote either for or against this project. We would make a motion. We also have the option to make a continuance, but we would ask you if that would be something you're interested in, or the owner.
May I speak to my client real quick?
Yes.
If we were able to take your feedback now and delete, say, the Tudor style window and take the porch language back to, I guess, to the existing house language, would we be able to continue, or with an approval? I think that's what you were trying to ask.
So unfortunately, we have to make basically our decisions on what you have presented to us today. So Do I need to open up the public hearing again on this or no? As if we're asking questions?
I think if you're just explaining procedure, you can
Okay.
go ahead and do that.
So what we're going to basically make a recommendation on is what we've seen. So, you know, you've heard what the commissioners have said about the design and their concerns. So you do have the option for us to vote one way or the other, or a continuance if you would like that.
The continuance would be for next month in October, or is it at a later date?
We'd be looking at October 7th at this point.
I'm okay with the continuance if you are. Yeah, we're good with that, thank you.
Okay.
Wise move.
Hearing that, I would like to make a motion for continuance to move to grant a continuance in case ARC 20-362 for the property located at 5409 North Seminole Avenue in the Seminole Heights Historic District to the public hearing on October 7th at 6 p.m.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned.